Where's he going with this shit?
Oh no, you belong to somebody new.
Cause tonight you belong to me. I'm from One West headquarters. Follow my captain's orders. Live in the land of pain and torture. No straw, but they want their mortar. Tell Trump, fuck borders. P.S. Prepare for slaughter. Never take their sons and daughters. Never give them alls in return. Niggas never wanna learn till they laying in the urn. Babylon, Babylon, Babylon. You gots to burn. Even if I gotta go with it. So fuck it, is you with it? Niggas never feel froggy, they just wanna rip it. If I see a bad bitch, then I gotta rip it. Your lip looking like the Red Sea when I split it. Tell me why that flow so vicious. Every time he switches, beat a nigga ass like mama did with switches. You niggas looking real.
Shalom. Y'all by Shemal Shah break a thumb. To the brothers, y'all Shemal Thought Shemal Shah. To the sisters, you here with Priest Captain Dr. Zach Bashad, ISUPK. You tune into another episode of The Bible is Black, where we highlight things in the Bible by Blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, our history, our records, our cultures, things that you may have never known were in the Bible that you see on a regular basis in your day-to-day lives, things that you do, things that you say, things that you've grown up with just out of instinct being the people that we are, so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. So today we want to get into, you understand, Joshua, stories in the Bible, things that you may have heard, you may have seen in music and places in your own communities and neighborhoods and growing up. We're going to get into right here. Today, we're going to get into Joshua. What set you claim? Bet you probably didn't know that that was in the Bible. What set you claim? What hood you from? Who you represent? You understand? You probably never knew that that was in the Bible. Going to church, they would have never told you in church. You never learned this in Bible study, men's rehearsal, choir rehearsal, all them anniversary services, children's church, intercessory prayer, night watch service. They teach you to suppress the fact that about race, because the Bible is about one race, one nation, one family of people. They completely erase it. And with that, they take the very soul and spirit out of the Bible. That's why you can't understand it. That's why it's a bunch of fairy tales and mysteries and questions and confusions, mainly because you have not come to the prophets of the Lord and the ISUPK to learn the truth about the Bible, which is what we're going to get into. What set you claim? Where you from? What hood do you represent? That is in the Bible. You understand? Whose side are you on? Right here, the book of Joshua, chapter 5 and verse 13. Let's get into it. And it came to pass when Joshua was at Jericho, this was our land. Joshua was a mighty warrior. He was in charge of the nation of Israel after the death of Moses. If you go back to the second video in this series, The Bible is Black. If you go to the second video, Put Respect on My Name, you'll see what Moses told the children of Israel that Joshua was up next. He was going to be in charge once Moses died. Moses was making preparations for the next generation to take over in his stead when he was no longer alive and leading the nation of Israel. So that is what you see here. Joshua is now in charge. Moses is now, of course, dead and gone. So what we have here, and it came to pass, we had Joshua chapter 5 and verse 3. And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes, meaning Joshua was by Jericho and he's lifting up his eyes and he's looking. He's on watch. He's looking, he's scanning around the territory because unlike the leadership that we have today for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, Joshua actually loves God's people. Joshua loves them and cares for them. And he is looking on Shamar, which is in the Hebrew, to guard or to watch. He's on Shamar for any danger, any hurt or harm that could come to the people that he loves, the nation that he is in charge for. Unlike your Black leaders and religious leaders, they allow any and everything to happen to our people. They allow murder and poverty and drugs to flood our community, our homes to be torn down, our jobs to be taken. You know, they allow us to be sick and lead in our paint, lead in our water. They allow all kinds of things because they are not the leaders that God set up. This is a man that God actually set up, like the prophet you see in the ISUPK under Commander General Yohana, who God actually put in charge of our people. it says that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man. So he saw a man. He didn't know who this man was. He didn't recognize this man. He didn't know this man. He looked over and he saw a man. And behold, there stood a man over against him. There was a man a distance away. He's looking, and he see a man looking at him. A man against him with his sword drawn in hand. He see a man with a strap in his hand. Man with a sword in his hand. You understand? He got a sword in his hand, and Joshua looking. You understand? And Joshua went unto him. Joshua rode straight up to it. Joshua seen a man that he don't know with a sword in his hand. Joshua ran down on him immediately, ran straight to him and said, you understand, and said unto him, art thou for us or for our adversaries? He said, who you with? You understand? Are you one of us or you with our enemies? Whose side you on? What are you here for? Are you here for peace? Are you here for evil? You here to make trouble? What do you claim? Who are you with? Joshua ran to him immediately, and it's so right. He said, art thou for us? Are you on our side or for our adversaries? And it's so right and in the spirit why Joshua had this. Exodus 15:3 says, for the Lord is a man of war. Yahweh is his name. It is important that you understand that the choir boys and the politicians that you've seen represent God, that you thought represent the God of the Bible, they are not men of God. They are not equipped to do the job. They are not equipped for the burden, the responsibility, the danger. They do not have the warrior spirit to protect and keep our people safe. They don't have the combative spirit unless you are up against something that God actually wants. Then they have the spirit for it. They teach you things that is completely against the spirit of God. Like, well, we don't want to argue. Well, let's just agree to disagree. Like, they don't stand on anything. And that is a spirit that is not the Lord's spirit. That's not the spirit of God. You understand? I'm gonna get some more. Like, why did the Lord even bother putting this in the Bible if it was not important? You understand? Let's get this scripture real quick. You understand? Proverbs chapter 25 and verse 9. They teach you things that are not biblical. The very spirit of the Lord is a man of war, about battle, about conflict, about being ready to be at the defense of the nation, at the defense of the belief in the Bible. You understand? They don't stand on that business. You understand? Proverbs, the book of wisdom, you hear Proverbs quoted, but they don't understand or explain anything that's in the Bible because they don't have the spirit of the Lord outside the ISUPK. God said to debate thy cause. The definition of debate is a contention of words or an argument. The Lord said there should be arguments about your cause with your neighbor, with your brother, and discover not a secret to another. The Lord wants this Bible argued about. That Christian spirit is not the spirit of the Lord. The Lord wants the Bible to be argued about. You understand? That's why the spirit of a man of the Lord, the spirit of Joshua, who the Lord put in charge of the nation, he sees some dangerous man with a sword that he don't know. He run up to him immediately. You understand? Because he is a man of war, and that's what it takes to secure and protect our communities and our families. That's what it takes to make sure that we are not 2 million in prison. You understand? That our communities aren't flooded with crack and heroin, that murder does not explode throughout our community, that drugs are not poured into our community. You understand? From everybody, the damn triads, the cartels, America, the mafia, any and everyone can come and just flood their drugs, their culture, their gods, their beliefs, and their businesses in our communities, because we do not have men like Joshua that rule the community. The Commander General Yohana is raising Joshua's up all across the world. You understand? What we did not understand, because the Christian church does not give us the spirit of the Lord, our people are looking for something to do with what is inside of them. And the spirit of the Lord is to be a warrior, is to be strong, is to be rough, is to be masculine, is not to be feminine like what you've been taught in that Christian church. And because the Christian church does not give us the spirit of God, this is what we turn into. We find a way, something to do with that warrior spirit, so we go join a street gang. we go and join, you understand? The Hispanic brothers, warriors, looking for the same thing. Tribe of Ephraim, the Puerto Ricans, you understand? We can't find it because the God that we've been taught about does not connect with the spirit of what God put inside of us. So we ain't trying to be in the church beating no tambourine like no choir boy, filled with women ruling over every goddamn thing and soft, weak, and feminine men. So now you got warriors that's going to turn to the streets. But we don't have what God said for us to be a warrior about. So we go and fight and kill and stab and shoot each other and terrorize our own communities. You understand? All the tribes, the tribe of Levi with the soul pounds, Ephraim, you understand? The Hispanic brothers, Issachar and Ephraim, turn to the Latin kings, turn to the Crips, tribe of Judah and Benjamin. You understand? All the tribes turn to the Crips, turn to the street gangs, turn to the neighborhood gangs, turn to the tribe of Simeon, same thing. Turn to the DDP and the Trinitarios and the Nietas and Latin kings and Norteños, the tribe of Gad on the reservations. Everybody looking for the same thing. Like this is the spirit that we were supposed to have. With the proper spirit of the Lord, we would not be shooting and fighting and killing each other. Joshua had the spirit of the Lord, and that spirit he had was to run down on to make sure that no enemies were allowed to be amongst us. Because once enemies were allowed amongst us, we took their gods, we took their cultures, we married into their society, we took their religions, then we started wearing colors to kill each other. Then we started dividing up. We're not brothers anymore. If you from the West and I'm from the East, we're not brothers anymore. Now you are my enemy. Joshua understood with the spirit of the Lord that if he did not aggressively deal with the enemies of the nation of Israel, that this is what we would become. You understand? He told that angel, he didn't know who it was. He just saw a man he didn't know with a sword, and he knew that he was in charge of protecting and leading the nation of Israel. And he just ran. He said, who are you with? Where are you from? What you represent? Who are you with? Are you for us or our enemies? I see you over there with your sword. You came in for some smoke. Why are you here? You understand? It's going to be a problem immediately. And that is the spirit that we had in our communities before we got all these drugs, before we got integration. That was the spirit for the community to look out for each other. The fathers were in charge. The sons were in charge. Everybody had a sense of value and worth and love for the community. We had brotherhood with each other. Blacks, and in the same black neighborhood, we had it was filled with black people. It was filled with Puerto Ricans and Mexicans and natives. We were always together. We did not become divided and started killing each other until we started to be Americans, until we started to be Democrats and Republicans. We were not Bloods and Crips before Democrats and Republicans. You understand? Until we started to take on their gangster culture, their lifestyle, their way of living, and our families got dissolved thanks to integration. Then they came with this, the Public Housing Act. So now, as long as you get rid of that father, that husband out of the house, they'll give you housing. And these housing projects became filled with the same gangs, the murder, the drugs, everything went out of order once that father was removed from the house and mommy started raising kids by themselves, just like it is to this very day. Joshua understood with the spirit of the Lord that this is what would happen to our people if another nation of people was allowed to come among us. That's why as soon as he saw someone, he said, I'm not going to allow this to happen to my people. He said, I'm not going to allow this. The spirit of the Lord inside of him met that threat. What he perceived was a threat, he met it head on. You understand? He said, where are you from? You understand? You from the projects in here, you from DC, you from the quarters, you from the Melpomene in New Orleans. You understand? You from Mosby Court in Richmond. Where you from? You understand? You from the projects in New York. You from Bed-Stuy, you from Kensington, where you from Philly, you from Baltimore, you from the West, you from the South Side. All of these things divided us once we no longer had the brotherhood that we shared before integration. Where you from? Lemoyne Gardens, you from Bowen Homes, you from Bankhead Court, you from Atlanta, where you from? You from the projects in Memphis, where you from? The projects in Portsmouth, you from Petersburg. All of this is what we became because there was no man of God on watch to keep every enemy out from us. They let all of the enemies in. They let the Chinese in, took all of the businesses, set up shop. They let the Arabs, the East Indians, the Africans in. Took all of the businesses that blacks and Hispanics we had for each other. They set up shop and we went to doing this to each other. We went to look at each other as our adversaries. We got big groups and big groups of each other to fight and kill our brothers, to hate our brothers. Our lives became about fighting each other because the spirit of the Lord to be a man of war was inside of us, and the Christian church did not teach us what to do with that spirit. So we rival and battle each other. You understand? We became North versus South with each other, red versus blue to each other, black versus brown to each other, light skin, dark skin to each other, sisters at each other's throats, brothers at each other's throats. This is why Joshua knew he could not allow another nation of people or some enemy or adversary to bring their culture, their way of life, their gods, or to rule over us, because they would take our resources, and this is what we would become with each other. Fighting and killing and murdering each other and doing all manner of horrible wickedness and unbrotherly because we joined another nation of people. A man of the Lord knew this. Joshua understood this very well, and he was not going to let it get to that point. I'm going to read it again. Joshua 5:13 said, and it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, there stood a man over against him with his sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went up to him and said unto him, art thou for us or for our adversaries? He said, who you with? What you represent? Who you with? Why are you here? You understand? You know somebody here in this neighborhood? What you doing? What you doing around here? I see you with your sword. You trying to start some trouble? Because I can't allow you to bring this trouble to the Lord's people. I can't allow you to just freely come and set up your mosque and your churches and your temples and your dope spots and your philosophies to poison the children of the Lord. That must be a war. You're not allowed around here. You cannot be here. You understand? That is what protection is. And that is what we don't have. That's why it's 2 million of us piled in prison. You understand? That's why our families and communities are broken and falling apart, and half of our race is strung out on drugs, from here to Mexico, to Brazil, to Trinidad, to Puerto Rico, to the Dominican Republic, to Haiti, to Canada, all the way throughout Europe. Half of our race is completely strung out on drugs because there was no Joshua to meet an adversary at the border. You understand? Verse 14, and he said, this is what the angel said, nay, but captain of the host, I'm the chief man in charge of the armies, which is what the word host means, the host of the Lord am I now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and did worship him and said unto him, what saith my Lord unto his servant? Joshua didn't know that this was an angel. The angel is rough and hard and got a sword in his hand and standing looking over, and Joshua don't know who this is. As far as Joshua is concerned, this is an enemy coming to kidnap and sex traffic brothers and sisters, coming to flood dope and pills and Percocets and weed into our people, or tell us to join another nation of people and integrate or do God knows what. Joshua is not giving it that chance. Joshua went and dealt with that immediately, head first. And later on, he found out that this was an angel, that the Lord had sent this angel here. You understand? The archangel Mayaka-Allah, or Michael in the Hebrew, is the chief angel in charge of all the Lord's armies in heaven. That is who Joshua met. You understand? And the captain said to Joshua, Salakia, and the captain of the Lord's hosts, you understand, said unto Joshua, loose thy shoe from off thy foot, for the place whereon thou standest is holy. And Joshua did so. You understand? That's a story in the Bible. That is what it takes to have the spirit of the Lord. You understand? Christ was not building a choir. Christ was building an army. The same way that Moses had did, the same set of instructions that he was given from the beginning. That is why Commander General Yohana is not building a choir. It's going to take an army to fix the problems that we have between Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Otherwise, you'll have a neighborhood and communities filled with gangs, and the oppressor will show up just so that he can kill and get a raise, and then do a RICO and lock up all the young brothers, Black and Hispanic, that he can find, because we are lost without the direction from the men that the Lord set up, which is in the ISUPK, you understand? This is the spirit of the Lord. Deuteronomy 1:15. So I took the chief of your tribes, the head of your tribes, wise men, wise, they understood the law and known. They know, you know them. These men are well known. They are wise men. You know them for their wisdom and their decision-making capabilities, and made them heads, rulers over you, captains over thousands, captains over hundreds, captains over 50s, captains over tens, and officers among your tribes, leaders and officers all throughout your tribes, so that they can deal with the issues and problems of our people. That's why you dial a 911 and some people from another community show up with laws that are not our laws, to enforce instructions that they got from our oppressor to lock up, arrest, and fine and take as much as they can, because that is the job. If they do not, and they try to help and they get in the way, you see, they'll fire them. They'll take their badge, they'll demote them, they'll put them in harm's way, they'll make them out to be the criminal, because that is not what their system is created for. This is our system that we are supposed to have amongst ourselves, that you know nothing about because you've been raised a Christian your entire life, and Christians do not know the Bible. They're not taught the Bible. No one is to teach. Christianity is to make sure that you don't learn that the Bible is black. You don't learn that the salt of the earth is talking about blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. You don't learn that race is in the Bible, that Jesus is a black man from the ghetto of Nazareth, that God in heaven is a black man sitting on a chair made of fire with flaming spinning rims with an afro sitting on his head. That you don't learn that blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. Joshua was a so-called Puerto Rican, by the way. This was a brother of the tribe of Ephraim, a so-called Puerto Rican. He was in charge after Moses' death. Moses was a so-called Haitian, if he would be alive today. That's the tribe of Levi. The tribe of Ephraim is so-called Puerto Ricans. You understand? This is why we are doing what is in the Bible, and you have never heard of this or understood it, because even if you have not physically been going to church, the very air that you breathe outside of the ISUPK is church. Voting is church. Christmas is church. Birthdays is church. Halloween is Christianity. That's what I mean when I'm saying church. Divorce is church. The LGBT community is church. A woman teaching the Bible is church. Single motherhood is church. Domestic violence is church. Child molestation is church. Sexual assault is church. Kidnapping is church. All of these things, drug addiction, smoking weed, getting high, worshiping your zodiacs, praying to goddamn crystals, burning sage in your house for witchcraft to ward off evil spirits. All of that is Christianity. It's the worship of many gods that you will never learn that you worship in these many gods unless you come to the prophets that God set up to teach you what is actually in the Bible and what is actually going on around you in the real world while you are asleep in Martin Luther King's dream fantasy world. This has been another episode of The Bible is Black. You understand? Our culture in the Bible. What set you claim? Joshua, an Ephraimite brother. Like, share, subscribe. Tell us what you thought. Shalom.
Nobody tell you cry. You know why? Because I never saw you before. But you are a black man like me. And it works out.
My whole life was trying to find something to follow. Had loyalty, every man tried to borrow. Felt pain and a lot of sorrow. Got betrayed, so packed, I didn't even have my heart broke. Living confused, about to lose hope. Cops got me on the side of the road like a sideshow. Need an antidote before I croak. Now I'm setting fire to rhythm man blues for this guitar smoke. Rebel with no cause, trying to find direction. The world got me vexed. Picked up a bad liquor habit that's hereditary from oppression. Felt like my life was on fire, trying to find an exit. Now look, 10 G's plus a good record. Sometimes a follower is a soldier, trying to find a good shepherd. Plus when you in hell, how did you excel? Wisdom the breath of life, I don't believe in fairy tale. Listen well to what I tell. No calling can cause pain, something that a rebel knows very well.